And the areas that we explore, including this one, which we took a group of about 20 herbalists and students to this year, has really proved quite fruitious. I won't tell you where that is. You just have to come with us next year. And this is that site at dawn. Again, 8,600 feet, Ligusticum grayi. We harvest the roots of this plant. If you are a practitioner of Chinese medicine, you know that there are two very prominent plants in the Chinese Materia Medica, Ligusticum chuanxiang, which is a blood-moving plant that has indications for the treatment of pain in many regions of the body, and Ligusticum gaobun, which is Ligusticum sinense, so which is a warm acrid herb that releases the exterior and has indications also for pain. So for those of you who are not, so we'll talk about some common things that are associated with Western notions of applications of Ligusticum grayi. Very pronounced antiviral effect. So predominantly used for upper respiratory viruses, early onset viruses. It's said to anesthetize the throat. Commonly pastilles are made out of this, or honey licorice pills are made for early stages of viral or other microbial-based sore throats that one might be contracting. It is purported to benefit individuals' ability to withstand high elevation. Interestingly, this plant is associated with facilitating ease of acclimation to high elevations. It's been purported that it facilitates gas exchange at the alveolar level and will thus increase the uptake of oxygen, which we had a couple people on our trip this year who succumbed to elevation sickness. It wasn't severe, but it was pronounced and warranted treatment. I don't have as much experience using this particular plant for this indication, but I do know quite a few people who really use it this way. So you can also use it topically and use its antimicrobial properties, antibacterial, antiviral properties for, and I would say that it's probably antifungal too. I've seen it used topically for staph infections as a component of a staph infection presentation. These can all be used as, this is something that can be infused into honey, infused into water, infused into alcohol. There's a lot of different preparations. I'm not going to get too into that here. You can dry it, use it as a tea. You can dry it and chew on it, which is a very common practice for getting its medicinal benefits directly into the oral cavity, to the throat, and to derive its benefits as I mentioned, as an agent that will assist with getting to high elevations comfortably. In terms of its flavor and energetics of this herb, it's definitely acrid. If you've ever tasted osha, even really dry old osha, it's a very acrid spicy herb. It has a very strong characteristic flavor that once you familiarize yourself with, you won't miss it. It has some bitterness to it. It is very aromatic, very pungent, very dispersing of both, and now we're talking Chinese language, very dispersing of blood, very dispersing of congested dampness, dispersing of qi. Some other notions of this, of what we might interpret this to mean, are that it has the potential to alleviate pain. It has the potential to diaphorise or release the exterior, make one sweat. And it's also, you might say, depending on how you use this language. You might say this is an expectorant. You might say that it clears phlegm from the throat, from the lungs, and possibly from the stomach as well. So functions and indications of this, and I'm going to be presenting some of this information just from the monograph in Thomas Guerin's Western Herbs According to Traditional Chinese Medicine text. And we'll cover a few of the other herbs in the Apiaceae family. And then I'll make mention of some of the other things that are in this family from the Chinese Materia Medica, just to help cross-reference that again. So, so this expels wind. By the way, if you don't have Thomas's book, it's just every time I open it, it's extremely lovely. The pictures are lovely. The amount of thought, research, and organizational clarity that went into this is really outstanding. And I find it a very useful clinical manual and derive both inspiration and inspiration on how to use common medicinals in the U.S. from a Chinese perspective, and and also as a formulary. There's some really unique road-worn, from Thomas's own use formulas in here, which is it's a very unique herbal in that way. So Oshala, I heard it speculated, Thomas includes this in his book, that Ligusticum grayi, Ligusticum porteri is Osha. It's, little brother. It's a smaller plant, Ligusticum grayi, being called Oshala. When you talk about using this as something to help you gain an elevation, you're looking at it being something that may very well supplement in some capacity, right? So you're exploring the possibility that this has some qi supplementing potential versus a regulatory or draining function. I think that's a useful question to hold out, in this exploration of application of Chinese energetics to Western herbs. So some of the things that this effectively treats: wind heat or wind cold type of presentations, early onset colds and flus, with symptoms such as sore throat, fever, nasal congestion, neck pain, cough, headache, and body aches. So it is mobilizing an immune response, strengthening the immune response of the body while directly engaging superficially, combating microbes, either virus or bacteria that are invading, as well as providing a anodyne function in alleviating neck pain, nasal congestion, maybe facial pain that might be associated with some of that nasal congestion, and body aches. So it has a very strong affinity. It does have an affinity for the acridity, has a strong affinity for the lungs, and the channel terrain that it affects. Say the liver. Probably say it also affects the bladder, small intestine should be included there. It can be steered towards treating wind cold or wind heat. Another application, so once that disease process is settled in from the exterior into the lungs and or throat, you're going to use this to clear heat and drain fire in the upper burner. So we're going to use its bitter and acrid and aromatic nature to quell this really hot, burning fire. We might see a sinus infection. We might combine it with other herbs for even purulent yellow discharge. It's going to be more effective as a single herb when there's clear discharge, but I would certainly include this in formulation for purulent yellow discharge in the sinuses or in the lungs or in the throat, with or without fever. So either secondary infection, sequela of an upper respiratory viral infection. It's very common that you treat the viral infection, and secondary to that, you get another bacterial infection. As we mentioned, this is an anodyne, will directly alleviate pain of the throat. So for lancinating, searing, painful sore throat, this is really a first-line remedy for that. Just chewing or sucking on a piece of the root is very effective. Dosage in decoction ranges from 3 to 12 grams of the root. 1 to 5 milliliters of fresh plant tincture. I'll dose it, if you're making a decoction, if you're doing 12 grams with other herbs, you're going to make a decoction and serve that one over the day. I really like making fresh plant tincture. I've also collected this and dried it, or purchased dried OSHA. Found it very strong. So it is fairly stable. Useful Chinese formulas that you might include this in. Think of Chuanxiang Cha Qiao San as a formula in which Chuanxiang, or Ligusticum chuanxiang, is the primary herb, which is, it's kind of a panacea for headaches, specifically when cold type headaches, but is commonly used as an analgesic anodyne for all sorts of headaches.